First, we're going to have Dr. Tom Myers. He is a hydraulic consultant. He works with conservation groups and local governments. He used to be the executive director of the Great Basin Mine Watch, and he has graduate degrees in hydrogeology from the University of Nevada in Reno. And when he's not harassing mining companies or water purveyors, Tom spends time climbing mountains and exploring the desert.
Lights off though, and at least a couple of lights off. Okay, I wanted to show a few slides. As I'm setting up here, I was thinking when Sean was talking about the 1872 mining law, and just wondering if Ulysses S. Grant really intended for the 1872 mining law to include kitty litter. And I was thinking something when Senator Hertzberg was just speaking too. He was talking about letting the public know the regulations. What's more important than the public knowing the regulations is making sure those regulations are actually enforced. Now, if I can figure out how to turn this into a slideshow. There we go. Okay, I've got a few slides here. I'm going to go through. I'm only going to go through a few of the slides that I put on here, just to save time, and hopefully we'll have some questions toward the end of, the night. We have mentioned 7:30 is sort of a drop dead date for us. This is a picture of what an open pit mine looks like from the air. This is the Lone Tree pit right here, and you can see it's a pretty deep pit. But what would happen if you mined it without pumping the water out of it, without pumping the water around that pit before actually mining? Well, the water would flow into it, and it would fill with water, and you frankly wouldn't be able to mine. So basically what they do is a mining company installs wells all around the proposed pit, lowers the water table, and disposes of and uses that water in different ways. And I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about the volumes of water that are involved with this process. This slide right here is a little complicated. I'm not going to go through it in detail. In fact, a few of my slides are a little complicated. I wanted to show where. There we go. I wanted to show where in Nevada most of the mining occurs. This is the Humboldt River Basin in northern Nevada. The Humboldt River starts in Elko County, and it flows westward and southwestward and ends in a playa near Lovelock, Nevada. There are about 5 large mines here, which I will show on a later slide where they're exactly exactly located. But there are 3 issues that I want to cover briefly: dewatering pumpage, the formation of pit lake, both they're primarily their volume, but a real quick mention of their water quality, and the long-term evaporation losses that will occur from those pits. I'm going to skip this slide because it shows the process of dewatering, but I'm going to save time on that. This map here shows 5 mines scattered throughout the Humboldt River Basin and how much water they have pumped relatively. This biggest circle here is over 1,100,000 acre feet, and it's at Barrett Gold Strike and Miko mines in northern Eureka County. I mean, overall, between 1996 and 2009, all the numbers I have end in 2009, mines have dewatered at over 2,900,000 acre feet of water. Just to put that in perspective, the Southern Nevada Water Authority has applied for 175,000 acre feet a year from eastern Nevada, and the hearings are ongoing on that right now, but that's approximately 25 years worth of the amount of water that SNWA is proposing to pump if they were to get every drop of water they're requesting. What did they do with the water? Well, at Lone Tree, for example, the Lone Tree mine discharges about 80% of that water. That's what this line here shows. It was discharged into the Humboldt River. Now that they've stopped dewatering and the pit is filling, they're no longer discharging into it, and people downstream who became dependent on that water no longer have it. I mean, it used to be 8 years ago you could go through Winnemucca, Nevada, there was water flowing through the Humboldt River. Now there isn't, because they basically kept it going. They also re-infiltrated a small amount of it. That is dying. And the Cortez pipeline mine returned about 80% of the water to infiltration basins. As you can see there, they pumped up about 35,000 acre feet a year from one mine in one area to keep one mine dry. Barrick Goldstrike, I've mentioned before, that was the highest pumper. One year in 1998, they pumped 70,000 gallons per minute, which is approximately approximately 100,000 acre feet of water in 1 year. That was 1998. Prior to that, when they were permitting the mine, they had predicted approximately 10,000 gallons per minute would be pumped. They were pumping from a carbonate aquifer, and they managed it. They hit a real porous zone, and they ended up drawing water from way north up in what's called the Independence Range, north of the mine. And initially, they discharged the water to the river, but then they ended up irrigating with it. This is a picture I pulled off of Google Earth last night. It shows the mine in the upper right there, and it shows all of the irrigation pivots they have put in down around Boulder Flat, showing just how much water they're pumping and how much water they're disposing of. They're irrigating with it, which is a good thing. But I have known a couple of ranchers to suggest it's excess alfalfa and it's lowered the prices a little bit, but because this represents a large amount of alfalfa for Elko County. Pit lakes. When these, as I mentioned, they dewater. These pits will fill with water when they stop mining. The largest one there is the Barrick Goldstrike mine. Yeah, as I said, it's the biggest circle there is about 360,000 acre feet. I understand that they're going to do some backfill in there, put some waste rock back into the pit, so the volume may be less than that. But what we have is in the five largest pits in northern Nevada, there will be over 1 million acre feet of water in those lakes. The Barrick pit, at least at its original conception, is going to be the largest human-made lake in Nevada, at least north of the one south of here along the Colorado River. But that's half in Arizona, so we can still say it's the largest human-made pit in Nevada. And just a couple of boring statistics about the pit lakes. As I said, over 1 million acre feet. Some of them are being backfilled, but there will be, that was one circle there, a little over 1 million acre feet of water will be in the pit lakes. Almost 10,000 acre feet of water will evaporate from these pit lakes every year. I mean, we don't really think about evaporation from these things. 10,000 acre feet of water is approximately the amount of water that Southern Nevada Water Authority is requesting from Cave Valley or Dry Lake Valley in eastern Nevada. One whole valley's worth of water is going to be evaporated into the air from these pit lakes and not reused for anything. This slide shows how much water, how fast nature could replace the water. I've tried to show here in a couple of these basins, and it's a little more complicated than I want to try to get into, but there's 40 or 50 years of the entire natural recharge in these basins goes into making up this dewatering deficit that's been created. I mean, it varies. Some of the different colors there show how much water it recharges naturally. The really dark colors in the upper right there are where the recharge occurs. Some of this dewatering further downstream in the Humboldt River will take a lot of water from the river to make up the deficit. And this is what this one here shows. That one area in the middle that is really high is basically showing that in the Boulder Flat area that they've been dewatering their dewatering rate is equivalent to about 40 years worth of what's called the perennial yield in that valley. That's the amount of water that nature puts in and that would otherwise be granted by the Nevada State Engineer as a water right. These mines have never been limited to the perennial yield pumping from the valleys. What are the future uses of some of these pit lakes? They're going to close, they're going to fill with water. What are future uses? Well, one idea would be a tourist attraction. This projector actually doesn't show the colors as well as they showed up on my screen. It's really pretty water. This is the Berkeley Pit in Butte, Montana. They have a visitors area. I think they charge $3 or something for people to go in and take a look at one of the world's largest Superfund sites. Oh, and speaking of new life, someone mentioned new life a while ago. I think Joe did. the Berkeley pit does have a couple of microorganisms which have never been seen elsewhere. I think they've evolved there. Moving forward, we could regulate pit lakes for better water quality. They're not, I mean, it's debatable whether they're even considered waters of the state, but with the amount of water that that Southern Nevada Water would like to pump south, when you think about how much water is in these pit lakes and being in these deficits, you know, allowing the water quality to go bad, which Glenn's going to talk about in just a second. A tax on net dewatering. I mean, that was proposed a few years ago. By net dewatering, I mean if you don't put it back in the ground, you pay a tax on it. Require re-injection to the original aquifers. I mentioned that a couple of them recharge aquifers. Well, when they're pumping it out of the carbonate aquifer and putting it back into the fill aquifer, it's not in the same place, and you're still going to have deficits in different places. Or you can backfill pits more to decrease the volume. With that, that's all. I believe, Glenn, you're next. I'll get your presentation set up. I'll get your presentation set up here.
Thanks, Tom.